Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. The lights in the courtroom shone coldly on Marcus Porter's face as he sat at the defense table, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles white from the exertion. Across the room sat his wife Veronica, dressed in a dark blue professional suit, her head bowed and her hands rubbing together in her lap. They've been married for 15 years, and together they've built a 3-story home in the suburbs, have 2 adorable golden retrievers, Max and Bella, and 3 children. 13-year-old Kevin, 11-year-old Michael, and 7-year-old Emma. It was supposed to be the perfect family story until that night 4 months ago when it all fell apart. Your Honor, Mr. Harold Johnson, Marcus' attorney, stood up and adjusted his black-rimmed glasses, his voice crystal clear in the silent courtroom. My client, Mr. Marcus Porter, is adamant that the divorce be finalized immediately. We have ample evidence that the defendant, Ms. Veronica Porter, has maintained inappropriate extramarital relationships with at least 4 different men over the past year and a half, which is a serious breach of the duty of fidelity in marriage and has caused irreparable harm to my client. There was a murmur from the courtroom, and reporters were busy taking notes in their notebooks. Veronica looks up at Marcus with remorse in her eyes, but Marcus immediately looks away. He didn't want to see her tears, didn't want to see the look on her face as she tried to garner sympathy. Attorney Johnson continued, based on our detailed investigation, picking up a thick folder covered with various labels. Ms. Veronica Porter has maintained a long-term extramarital relationship with, first, David Martinez, age 28, who works as a personal trainer at Fitness Revolution Gym and is also my client's wife's fitness trainer. Second, James Wilson, age 35, a co-worker of Ms. Porter's at Kleinstein Investments, and the two often worked overtime together. And third, Robert Chun, age 40, a coach for the Porter family's 3 children at the Lincoln United Soccer Club, who took advantage of the pickup and drop-off of the children as an opportunity to have a relationship with Ms. Porter. And fourth, Michael Thompson, 29, a partner at the downtown-based law firm of Thompson & Associates, both of whom were documented at several high-class hotels. With each name, Marcus felt a stab in his heart. The names had been etched in his memory for a long time, but saying them openly in court still sent a tearing pain through him. Johnson continued his presentation of evidence. We have photographic evidence, he said, pulling several 8x10-inch color photographs from a folder and handing them to the judge individually, showing Ms. Porter's intimate encounters with each of these 4 men at different times and in different places. These photos were taken by licensed private investigators in a public place and are perfectly legal. He took out another stack of material. Here are Ms. Porter's credit card statements showing that she spent money every week for the past year and a half at fancy downtown hotels like the Marriott and the Hilton. In the meantime, here's her work record showing that she was supposed to be in the office at the same time. And this, he said, pulling out a phone log. Ms. Porter's call logs show that she spoke with these 4 men multiple times a day and used a secret WhatsApp account to send inappropriate messages. I have the full printout of the chat here, and it's very revealing, and I don't think it's appropriate to read it aloud in court. Veronica's attorney, Ms. Harriet Smith, a shrewd woman in her 40s, immediately stood up. Your Honor, my client sincerely apologizes for past behavior, but she wants to emphasize that these behaviors are due to chronic emotional neglect and marital problems. Mr. Porter's prolonged preoccupation with work and neglect of his family resulted in my client feeling isolated and neglected. She deeply regrets her behavior and hopes to repair the relationship through marriage counseling. After all, they have 3 minor children. The youngest, Emma, is 7. For the sake of the children, she wants to give the marriage a chance. Marcus could no longer control his anger when he heard those words. He jerked up from his seat and pointed a shaky finger at Veronica. Neglecting your family? Are you saying I neglect my family? Mr. Porter, the judge pounded his gavel sternly. Please sit down and get a grip on your emotions right now, or I will hold you in contempt of court. But Marcus could no longer stop, and his voice echoed through the courtroom. What am I working 60 hours a week for? It's about giving you and the kids the best life possible. I remember every anniversary, every birthday. I never forget Emma's favorite pink butterfly beret. I play with Kevin when he likes to play video games, and I take Michael to practice every weekend when he likes soccer. He began to cry, and his voice became choked. Do you know how I found out? I was supposed to go to Boston for 3 days on business to negotiate a $5 million contract with Johnson Industries. Turns out their CEO suddenly got sick and the meeting was canceled. I wanted to surprise the kids and come home early. There was silence in the courtroom as everyone listened to Marcus continue. When I pushed open the door to our bedroom, his voice trembled even more. I saw that the young fitness instructor, the David I paid to teach you yoga, was in our bed with my wife. Enough! The judge banged his gavel again. Mr. Porter, please stop this immediately, or I will ask the guards to remove you from the courtroom. Marcus took several deep breaths and forced himself to sit down, but his hands were still shaking. He remembered all the details of that night. Veronica wrapped in the silk sheets she'd bought for their anniversary, David falling to the floor as he scrambled to dress, and their oldest son, Kevin, who happened to be coming out of the restroom, standing frozen in the hallway. Dad, 13-year-old Kevin was asking, what happened? Marcus could never forget the look on Kevin's face at that moment, first confusion, then understanding, and finally a deep sense of disappointment and anger. That night, Kevin cried all night in his room while Marcus sat on the couch in the living room, holding Emma as she asked why Mommy and Daddy were yelling. Now, in court, Attorney Johnson continues to show more evidence. This is a record of Ms. Porter's email account showing that she used her company email address to exchange private messages with these men. This violated company policy and led to her dismissal from Kleinstein Investments last month. He produced another document. These are bank records showing that Ms. Porter made significant expenditures for these relationships, including the purchase of an expensive designer watch for one young man, the payment of credit card debt for another, and numerous purchases at luxury restaurants. Veronica's attorney tried to counter. These allegations are too one-sided, and we need to consider the complexities of marriage. Marcus stood up again, but this time he controlled his emotions, his voice pain-filled but very clear. No, Miss Smith. I think you're missing the point. When I got married, I took a vow of fidelity. I did. When Veronica got married, she took the same vows, but she chose betrayal. He removed a folded piece of paper from the inside pocket of his suit. This is a letter I wrote to the children explaining why their parents are getting a divorce. Want to hear what I say to 7-year-old Emma? I told her that Mommy and Daddy can't keep living together because Mommy hurt Daddy's heart. The judge looked at the evidence that filled the courtroom and then said solemnly, considering the complexity of the case, especially the fact that there are 3 minor children involved, and the strong emotions expressed by both parties, I make the following ruling. The parties must attend mandatory marriage counseling for 1 month, meeting twice a week. The counselor will submit a detailed report to the court at the end of the meeting, on the basis of which I will make a final divorce decree. Your Honor, I categorically refuse. Marcus immediately said, I cannot and will not sit in the same room with that woman. The judge's eyes became stern. Mr. Porter, you have 2 choices. First, to comply with court orders to attend mandatory counseling. Second, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court for 7 days, and then you're still required to attend counseling. The choice is yours. Marcus gazes at the judge, then looks to Veronica, and finally sits down. I'll attend counseling, but I'm not going to change my mind. The marriage is dead. A week later, Marcus was sitting in Dr. Peterson's waiting room. It's an upscale psychiatric clinic in the center of town, with a variety of soothing landscapes and psychology-related certificates on the walls. Dr. Peterson himself was a 55-year-old man with grayish hair and gold-rimmed glasses, giving the impression of a gentle but professional man. Mr. Porter, said the receptionist, Dr. Peterson can see you now. Your wife is already waiting inside. Marcus took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the clinic. The entire room is designed to be cozy, with comfortable couches, soft lighting, and a floor-to-ceiling window that looks out onto the park. Veronica sits at one end of the couch, looking even more haggard than she did in court. Please sit down, Mr. Porter, Dr. Peterson pointed to another couch seat a little away from Veronica. I'm glad you all could make it. I know it's hard, but I'm hopeful that we can establish a safe and honest environment for dialogue here. Marcus sits down, but immediately clasps his arms to his chest in a defensive stance. Dr. Peterson, I'll be blunt. I'm only here because of a court order. I don't want to fix anything. I just want a divorce. Dr. Peterson nodded. I understand your position, Marcus. But since you're both here, we can at least try to understand each other's point of view, even if the end result is divorce. He turned to Veronica. Veronica, would you like to share your thoughts first? Veronica cleared her throat, her voice soft. I want to say I'm very sorry. I know I've made a terrible mistake. I know I've hurt Marcus. I've hurt our children. But I hope Marcus understands that I'm not doing these things because I don't love him. Marcus sneered, don't love me? So tell me, what is love? Is it letting other men sleep in our bed while I'm away on business? Was it while I was trying to work to support my family that you were dating 4 different men? It wasn't a date, Veronica argued. It was, I don't know what to say. I feel so alone, Marcus. You're always working, always having meetings, always traveling. That's my job. Marcus' voice rose. I'm working on our future. Dr. Peterson held up his hand in a gesture. Please calm down. I understand that you all have a lot of emotions to express. Marcus, can you tell us how you felt when you found out about the betrayal? Marcus takes a deep breath and begins. Initially, it was shock. When I saw, my first reaction at that scene was to think that it couldn't be true. I think this must be a nightmare, and I'll wake up soon. He continued, and then there was anger. This anger is like nothing I've ever experienced. I want to destroy that, David. I want to destroy all these men. Then came the grief. His voice became choked. For the 15 years we lost, for the children, broken families, for all the moments of deception. He took out his cell phone and opened an album. You want to know what it feels like? I have all the pictures taken by the private investigator here. He began to show them one by one, each with a caption. Here's Veronica and David kissing outside the gym, dated March 15th, the day I was in Chicago on business. Here's her and James in the parking lot below the office. They're getting ready to go to the hotel. The date is April 23rd, and I'm home with the kids doing their homework. Dr. Peterson tried to stop it. Marcus, I think. But Marcus continues. Here's her and Robert in his car, right where the elementary school picks up the kids, dated May 1st. Here's a picture of her and Michael at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, dated May 15th, which was our anniversary, and I was home preparing a surprise dinner. Veronica began to cry. Marcus, please stop. I know I went overboard. Excessive. Marcus looked at her angrily. You use the word excessive to describe betrayal? Do you know I have nightmares every night? I dreamed of you and them laughing at me, and of the children asking why Daddy had been deceived like a fool for so long. He pulled a wad of paper out of his bag. I have the details of each man here. David, 28, is single, engaged to his wealthy girlfriend, and his gym belongs to her father. James, 35 years old, married, with a wife 6 months pregnant, is competing for a senior management position in his company. Robert, 40 years old, married with 3 children, model father in the community. Michael, 29, and his girlfriend of 5 years are planning to get married next year. Do you know what all this means? Marcus continues. Not only have you betrayed me, you've destroyed the harmony of other families. James' wife doesn't know her husband is cheating on her. Robert's wife still thinks she has the perfect husband, and Michael's girlfriend is planning a wedding. Dr. Peterson tries to take control of the meeting. Marcus, I understand that your anger is justified, but let's try to understand why all of this is happening. Why? Marcus said excitedly. I'll tell you why. Because she's a person with no moral compass. Because she doesn't respect our marriage. Because she only thinks about her own needs. He stood up and paced back and forth across the room. You want to know what pains me more? Not the betrayal itself, though that was painful enough. What hurts the most is that I was kept in the dark for so long. I give her goodnight kisses every day, and she just got up from another man's bed. I asked her how work was going, and she smiled at me and said fine, but in reality, she had just had sex with a coworker in the conference room. Veronica kept apologizing. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I didn't mean to hurt you. Not on purpose? Marcus sneered. Let me ask you, when you first had sex with David, was it an accident? When you started talking to James all night, was that an accident? When you started dating Michael on a secret cell phone, was that an accident too? That's how the first counseling session ended in tension and arguments. Dr. Peterson suggests that they could try a more constructive dialogue next time, but Marcus makes it clear that he's not interested. At the second counseling session, Marcus was prepared with more materials. He brought a thick folder full of information. Dr. Peterson, he began, I want to do an experiment. What kind of experiment? The counselor asked. I want you to experience what I feel. It's only a 3-minute experience. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Marcus opened the folder and took out the first picture. This is your wife, Karen, right? The photo shows an elegant woman in front of the hospital. Dr. Peterson frowned. Marcus, it's not appropriate, dash. But Marcus went on to pull out more photos. Here's Karen having lunch with a man I'm sure isn't you at the Blue Bistro downtown last month. Dr. Peterson's face began to change. That's impossible. Karen was on duty at the hospital that day. Really? Marcus pulled out a document. Here's a receipt from Blue Bistro for 2 lunches at 1 p.m. Here are the hospital records showing that Karen's shift started at 7 p.m. that day. The counselor's voice began to tremble. What are you implying? Marcus pulled out more photos. Here's Karen with the same guy at the Motel 6 on Patterson Street. Here's their license plate number, belonging to Dr. Richard Anderson, your hospital colleague. Stop, Dr. Peterson exclaimed. That's impossible. Marcus continued, showing more material. Here's their texting history. They discuss when to meet and how to lie to their respective partners. Dr. Peterson's hands begin to shake as he picks up one of the photos for closer inspection. Marcus saw the fear begin to appear in his eyes. And finally, Marcus pulled out a document. Here are the DNA test reports for your sons Matthew and Daniel. No, said Dr. Peterson whispered. Please tell me that's not true. He grabbed the report, his hands shaking so badly he could barely read it. According to the report, neither of his twin sons are his biological children. Dr. Peterson springs to his feet and stumbles out of the room. Marcus could hear him vomiting in the hallway restroom. Veronica looks on in shock. Marcus, is this true? Marcus replied calmly. I'll tell him when he gets back. 5 minutes later, Dr. Peterson comes back into the room, eyes red and puffy, looking like he's just been through a huge blow. Now do you understand? Marcus asks. The feelings, the doubt, the anger, the betrayal, the despair. This feeling that the whole world is crumbling in front of you. That's what I've been going through for the last 4 months, every single day. Dr. Peterson shuddered and asked, So, Karen, really? It's all fake. Marcus interrupted, pulling the original photos and blank templates out of the folder. I photoshopped these photos, I faked the bills, and the DNA report is fake. Your wife is likely to be a faithful woman, and your children are indeed yours. Dr. Peterson stared blankly at the source material, then suddenly said angrily, Why did you do that? Do you know how much pain you've caused me? Yes, Marcus said calmly. I do know. That's exactly what I want. I want you to really understand what I'm feeling, not the theoretical knowledge I've learned from books, but the real, heartbreaking pain. He continued, Now you experience, even if it's only for 3 minutes, but you feel that shock, that disbelief, that anger, that despair. Imagine if this agony had lasted 4 months, if every detail was true, if the person you trusted most had actually betrayed you. Dr. Peterson sits in his chair with his head buried in his hands. After a long time, he looked up and said, I see. I thought I understood your pain, but I'm just now really feeling a glimmer of it. So now you still think we should fix our relationship? Marcus asks, Do you still think I should forgive and understand? Dr. Peterson takes several deep breaths, then says, No, Marcus. I understand now. Some betrayals can't be repaired. The next few counseling sessions were a complete change of pace. Doctor, instead of trying to push for a settlement, Peterson is helping the parties prepare for life after the divorce, especially how to handle the children's situation. Veronica also realized the impossibility of redemption. In her 4th counseling session, she finally admitted, I ruined everything. I shouldn't expect to be forgiven. It doesn't matter what you wish for, Marcus said. What matters is that I won't forgive. At the end of the 5th counseling session, Dr. Peterson submitted his report to the court. The report's conclusion was clear. The marriage was irretrievably broken, and continued forced counseling would only deepen the pain for both parties. He recommended that the court grant the divorce petition immediately. 3 weeks later, the court reconvened. The atmosphere was markedly different this time, and Marcus felt a sense of foreboding as he approached victory. Based on Dr. Peterson's detailed report, the judge declared, as well as considering the irreconcilable differences the parties demonstrated during the counseling process, this court grants the divorce petition in Porter versus Porter. Marcus closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. Finally, the official divorce decree came down. But he knew that this was only the first step in his plan for revenge. Immediately after leaving the courtroom, Marcus contacted his private investigator, Harrison Wright, a former police detective with 30 years of experience specializing in matrimonial investigations and background checks. "Detective Wright," Marcus said, "now I need you to do something else. I need all the information I can get on those four men. Their family details, job status, social connections, weaknesses, everything." "What are you going to do, Mr. Porter?" Wright asked cautiously. "I'm going to make them understand the cost of betrayal," Marcus replied simply. "But I'm going to make sure everything is within the framework of the law." 2 months later, Marcus receives an extremely thorough report, with information on each man meticulously researched and documented. David Martinez, 28, works as the head personal trainer at Fitness Revolution Gym. Just engaged to Alice Sterling, Alice's father, Benjamin Sterling, is the founder of Sterling Fitness Group, which owns 6 high-end gyms that make up the most successful chain in the area. David relies not only on this job, but also on the support of the Sterling family. He is planning to open his own gym within a year, and Alice's father has pledged startup funds. James Wilson, 35, works as a senior investment analyst at Kleinstein Investments, earning $150,000 a year. Married for 10 years, his wife Lisa is 28 weeks pregnant with their first child. James is competing for the position of vice president of the company, a position that will double his annual salary. He had a good reputation in the community and was an active member of the local Chamber of Commerce. Robert Chun, 40, is both the head coach of the Lincoln United Soccer Club and a physical education teacher at a local high school. Married for 15 years, he has 3 children and is regarded as an exemplary father and coach by the entire community. He has just been elected president of the school's parent council and is planning to organize the biggest school fundraiser of the year. Michael Thompson, 29, partner in the law firm of Thompson and Associates. 5 years with his girlfriend, Sarah Kim, who is an assistant district attorney. They are already planning their wedding for next spring and have purchased a new home in the suburbs. Michael has just recently won a major commercial litigation case that has been a major breakthrough for his career. Marcus scrutinizes each man's situation and then creates a sophisticated plan for revenge. He didn't want to break the law, but he was going to make sure that all 4 of them tasted betrayal. The first target is David. Marcus knew that David and Alice dined every Friday night at Le Jardin, a fancy French restaurant downtown, and it had become their traditional date night. He created a fake Instagram account, using an attractive photo of a woman as an avatar, pretending to be an anonymous friend who cared about Alice. The first private message read, "Hi Alice, I'm not sure if I should say this, but as a woman, I think you have a right to know. Your fiancé David may not be as loyal as you think." When Alice replies asking for more details, Marcus sends several carefully edited photos, all real, all taken by his private investigator, showing David and Veronica in intimate encounters on various occasions. He carefully chose photos that looked ambiguous but not too revealing. "I've seen him with this woman on a couple of occasions recently," he wrote, "and I did some research and found out her name is Veronica Porter, a married mother. I'm really sorry to have to tell you this, but I think you deserve to know the truth." Alice started digging deeper. Being the smart woman that she is, she soon discovers extensive call records with Veronica on David's cell phone bill. She also found out that David had actually closed his gym during some of the hours he claimed to be working late at the gym. When Alice confronts David directly, he initially tries to deny it, but when confronted with hard evidence, he eventually admits to the relationship. Not only did Alice immediately cancel the engagement, but she told her father the whole thing. Benjamin Sterling raged. Not only did he immediately fire David, but he spread the word in the industry, making it difficult for David to get a job at any of the high-end gyms in the area. David lost his job, his engagement, and the financial backing to open his own gym overnight. The second target is James. Marcus learns that James' wife, Lisa, is finishing her MBA and preparing to defend her dissertation in a few months. It was the most stressful time in her life, not only preparing for the birth of her child, but also finishing school. Marcus employs a different strategy. Instead of contacting Lisa directly, he met her, by chance, at a coffee shop she frequented. He appears as a mysterious business consultant who expresses interest in the subject of her dissertation. After a few chance encounters, Marcus gradually gains Lisa's trust. He then introduced the discussion with the topic of business ethics, eventually offhandedly, referring to a case he had recently investigated, in which a senior investment analyst had been fired for an inappropriate relationship with a client's wife. What's most interesting, Marcus says, is that the analyst's wife was completely unaware until the company's HR department notified her. Not only did she lose her husband, but she found out he had been lying. Lisa is starting to become alert. Later that night, she searched James' email for Veronica's name and found some private emails. She also went through his credit card statements and found multiple purchases at fancy restaurants during work hours. When Lisa confronts James, his initial denial and subsequent admission completely destroys their relationship. Lisa not only moved in with her mother, but also contacted the company's HR department to report James' inappropriate relationship with a coworker, which violated the company's ethics policy. James was interviewed by the company, and although he was not fired, he was given a formal warning, lost his promotion, and had to attend company ethics training. To make matters worse, Lisa has begun divorce proceedings, and he likely won't be able to have much contact with the child once it's born. The third target is Robert. His reputation as an exemplary father and coach in his community was vital to him. Marcus knew that ruining his reputation would be the most effective punishment. Marcus began spreading subtle hints among the community's parent groups. Instead of accusing Robert directly, he raised some concerns. At a PTA meeting, Marcus stood up and spoke. "I've heard some discussion lately about certain coaches having too close a relationship with parents. While I don't want to name names, as parents we need to make sure our children are in a safe and professional environment." He was deliberately vague, but knew it would arouse the curiosity of other parents. A few days later, on another occasion, he inadvertently mentioned that Veronica's car had stayed late in the school parking lot, when there had clearly been no school activities that day. Rumors began to spread in the community. Some parents began to notice Robert's interactions with certain parents and began to reevaluate details they may have previously overlooked. When someone finally looked at the school's visitor logs and security camera footage, they found Robert and Veronica meeting at the school outside of school hours on multiple occasions. The school board began a formal investigation. Robert tries to explain, but evidence begins to surface. His wife, Susan, began investigating his cell phone bills and whereabouts and found undeniable evidence. At a board meeting, several parents formally raised their concerns and asked Robert to explain his relationship with Miss Porter. Robert's denials pale in comparison, especially when pictures of them on different occasions are shown. Robert was temporarily suspended pending further investigation. Susan not only filed for separation immediately, but also moved back to her mother's house with her children. The whole neighborhood is now talking about the scandal, and Robert has gone from model father to community disgrace. The last target is Michael. As a young successful lawyer, image was crucial to his career. What's more, his fiancée, Sarah, takes integrity and professional conduct very seriously as an assistant prosecutor. Marcus' strategy is more complex. He knows Sarah has keen investigative skills, so he needs to be more careful. He began to meet Sarah by chance at the coffee shop in the courthouse that she frequented. "Hello, I think I've seen you in court," he said. "I'm Harrison, a private investigator." Over the course of several friendly chats, Marcus gradually builds a rapport with Sarah. They discuss legal cases, professional ethics, and their respective methods of investigation. Then, in a particularly cleverly designed conversation, Marcus mentioned a case he was investigating involving an inappropriate relationship between an attorney and a married client. "This is more common in the legal profession than people think," he says, "and the power dynamic between attorney and client makes the relationship particularly unethical." He continued, "Worst of all, this behavior is usually reported to the state bar, which can result in suspension of the license to practice law." Sarah began to think. That night, she checked Michael's cell phone bill and social media activity and discovered his frequent contact with Veronica. Although Michael has deleted most of the messages, Sarah's investigative skills soon lead her to some lingering evidence. When Sarah confronts Michael, he tries to lie, but as a prosecutor, Sarah is able to spot the lies easily. Michael eventually admitted to his relationship with Veronica, trying to defend himself by saying they were over. But for Sarah, the issue isn't just infidelity, it's ethics violations. As an attorney, Michael's relationship with his married client may constitute a conflict of interest. Not only did Sarah immediately annul the engagement, she reported the matter to the state bar. Michael faces a career investigation. Although he was not ultimately disbarred, his reputation was damaged and he lost several important clients. His law firm asked him to resign, and he had to start over at a smaller legal aid organization. 6 months passed, and Marcus's plans were all implemented. All 4 men have tasted betrayal and loss. Having lost his job, engagement, and career prospects, David now works as a night trainer at a small 24-hour gym. James' career has taken a serious hit with the loss of his wife and soon-to-be-born child, and he must pay high divorce costs and projected alimony. Robert lost his coaching position, his family, and his community reputation, and is now working as an assistant teacher at an elementary school in another city for half his old salary. Having lost his fiancée, several important clients, and his position at a top law firm, Michael is now working on legal aid cases. Meanwhile, Veronica's life is completely falling apart. Not only did she lose her high-paying job, but she was also unable to identify the father of her child. When she tried to force a DNA test through the courts, she discovered that all 4 men had hired lawyers and that delaying the process would require expensive legal fees that she could no longer afford. She was forced to move to a rundown apartment and began working as a waitress at a chain restaurant to make ends meet. Her 3 children chose to live with their father and only see her during legal visiting hours. A year later, on a fall afternoon, Marcus stumbles across James while walking in the park. The former investment analyst now works for a small accounting firm and looks 10 years older than he used to. "Marcus," James recognized him. "James," Marcus responded calmly. "I know you did it," James said bluntly. "It's all too much of a coincidence." Marcus didn't deny it. "What did you do, James?" "What? You chose to betray a marriage to a man you didn't know. You chose to cheat on your pregnant wife. Don't you think there should be consequences?" James said angrily. "You've ruined my life. I lost everything." "No," Marcus said calmly. "You ruined your life. I'm just letting the truth surface. If you really loved your wife, if you really thought about the baby that was about to be born, you wouldn't have cheated. But Lisa and the baby. Now that I believe Lisa knows the true nature of her husband," Marcus interrupted, "she can make an informed decision. As for children, they will grow up in an honest environment, not in lies." James glares angrily at Marcus, but eventually walks away without saying anything. Marcus watched his distant back and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. 2 years later, Marcus' life changed completely. He is married to Sarah Johnson, whom he met at a divorce support group and who has also experienced spousal betrayal. Their relationship is based on honesty, trust, and mutual understanding. "Are you still thinking about revenge?" Sarah asked him one night. "No," Marcus replied. "I don't need it anymore. They all learned their lessons, and I found a new beginning. Do you regret it?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "Some actions must have consequences. Betrayal cannot be easily forgiven, or no one will value loyalty and trust." 3 years later, on a warm summer day, Marcus and Sarah take the kids to an amusement park. Kevin is now 16 and starting to get interested in college. Michael was 14 and became the star of his school's basketball team. Emma is 10 years old and seems to be recovering best from her mother's betrayal, but still chooses to live with her father. At the amusement park, Marcus accidentally sees Robert. The former coach now has a little girl with him, apparently enforcing visitation rights. Robert sees Marcus, pauses, then nods. Marcus nodded in response. They both understood that that chapter was over. No more words, no more hate. Robert accepts the consequences of his choices, and Marcus finds inner peace. 5 years later, Marcus gets an unexpected phone call. It's Veronica calling. "Marcus, I know you probably don't want to talk to me." Her voice was tired. "But I think you know something." "What is it?" "I moved to another state and started a new life. I'm working for a charity that helps others who have experienced marital betrayal." Marcus was silent for a moment. "I help other people face the pain they cause every day," Veronica continues. "And I thought that by doing so, I might be able to make up for some of the hurt I caused." "That's good," Marcus finally said. "I want you to know that I really understood what I did. Not in counseling, not in court, but after I lost everything. I understood the true cost of betrayal, not just the loss of a spouse, but the loss of everyone's trust. She paused. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I know that's impossible. I just want you to know that you taught me a lifelong lesson. After the call, Marcus sits on the balcony, watching the sun set. Sarah came over and sat next to him. Is everything okay? Yes, Marcus said. I think everything went the way it was supposed to. They held hands and watched the sun slowly sink into the horizon. In the distance, their children are playing in the backyard and laughter fills the space. It's a new family, built on honesty and trust, and the betrayers are suffering the consequences of their choices. Eventually, Marcus realizes that the best revenge is not to destroy someone else's life, but to build a better one to replace the one that was destroyed. The betrayers had paid the price, and he had chosen to move forward, to choose a new love, to choose a future based on trust. This is the true cost of betrayal, not only the loss of a loved one, but also the loss of trust, reputation, and dignity. And for those who choose to be faithful, they reap the rewards of lasting love, genuine relationships, and inner peace. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.